Hey, welcome back guys to this Endless Runner tutorial. So in this one we actually restrict our camera from following our player left and right. We also restrict it on a vertical axis as well, so as you can tell right now it's going to follow you up to a certain point. And then we also do something else. We also create some kind of nice animation at the beginning. I don't know if you saw it, I'll just play it once more. It starts from up there and then it slowly, gradually moves towards our player. So that's what we're gonna do today, guys. Without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so last episode we actually created a camera that would follow our player around, but that's not actually the behavior we want. As you could tell, when I was going left and right, the camera would actually follow at the same time. Now, for an endless runner, I believe that the camera should always be in the center of the track, basically. So imagine that our track is going to be something like this. Then I don't want my camera to be following me around. I'd like my camera to actually stay in the middle of that track. And today we are actually going to restrict the camera movement a little bit. So we're going to go back inside the camera motor script. And in here we will go ahead and just start coding a little bit more. So just like we did for the player, we are going to declare a private vector3 move vector. And now this move vector is actually going to equal look at the position plus start offset. Oops. Start offset like this. So pretty much what we had here, we are going to put instead of move vector, and then we're going to say transform the position is equal to move vector. Now what we've did is actually nothing in terms of the way this is going to work. These are the same values, but we've actually created a layer in between this and this, so we can now modify the move vector. So like we did for the player, we're going to say this is the X, this is the Y, and this is the Z. Now the Z I don't think is going to take any modification, so that's fine. We can leave it like this. We can actually remove it completely. Now as for the X, I want to make sure that move vector dot x is always 0, which is the center of my track basically. Now as for the Y, we don't have a jump in the game, at least I don't plan on having any, but we might have some kind of track that goes a little bit up, so maybe some stairs, some really small stairs. So for the Y, I like to also restrict the Y axis, because our player is going to be going up the stairs and then our camera will follow him as well, but I don't necessarily want him to follow him all the way, so I'll just say move vector.y is equal to matf.clamp, and we're going to clamp the move vector.y and say we're going to leave that value in between 3 and 5. So our camera is only going to be able to move in that 2-meter range, so in between 3 and y, so that's about here, 3 in y to 5 in y, which is about there. But when it's at that point, that also means the player will be up by 2, so the player will be about here. Okay, I'm going to hit Control Z on this to restore what I had before, and that's pretty much what I'll be leaving it on. So I'm going to hit play now. And as you can tell, it actually stays there. And now eventually, if we have some kind of little stairs, I'm just going to duplicate this really quickly to show you. Like so. Then our player is going to go up that ramp, but eventually the camera is going to stop right there. And same thing works for when he's going in the other direction, so when he's going down. Okay, so we've just restricted our camera from left and right and up and down, but we keep going with the Z-axis, and that's just fine. But I'd like to create something more visible, something more stylish whenever we press start. Whenever we start a game, we go straight in the game, and I don't really like that. What I'd like to do is actually give our players some time to actually look at the scene and what's going on. So imagine you're actually playing the game, you're pressing on start in the menu we're gonna have later on, and then you get a good second to just understand what's going on, not simply just press play and that's a black screen and then boom, one shot like this. You can actually move, you can actually do all that kind of stuff. So I'd like to actually restrict the movement of our player for a second, and also create some kind of camera animation for a second as well. So for this, we'll be going back inside of the camera motor first, and then we'll go back inside of the player motor. So on top of my script over here, I will create a private float that I call transition, that I'll be putting on 0 for now, and you'll see what this is used for a little bit later on. And also create another float that I'll call animation duration, that we could be putting it on 2 seconds. So we've got a good 2 seconds to actually grasp what's going on. And finally, I'll declare a private vector3 that I call animation camera offset, but in this case I'll just say animation offset is equal to, say, new vector3, and maybe give it 0, 5, 5. Okay, so if we go back to our update, this is what usually happens on a normal frame. So that's the normal movement of the camera, and that's all good. But right there, in between the all these call and the last one, I'll just stick them together. In between all of these, what I'll do is I'll create a condition right there. I'll say if transition is bigger than 1. Then if that's the case, that means, okay, we can just do this. Do transform the position is equal to move vector. Do the normal movement. But else, if transition is not bigger than 1, that means we're still in the animation, the early animation, the start animation. Because if you remember, over here, private float transition is equal to 0, and that's when the game starts. So when the game starts, transition is on 0. So we run this, but we are going to enter the else statement. We're not going to run this, because in order to enter this, then transition has to be bigger than 1, and right now it's on 0. So we enter the else statement. So that's the animation at the start of the game. Now, what exactly we'll be doing for this animation? What we'll do is an actual loop. So we'll say transform.position, just like there. So the position of the camera is going to equal vector3.loop, and we'll say camera position. Oh, never mind. We're going to say move vector. So that's where we should be, plus the animation offset that we set right here. And we're going to lerp in between this and the move vector, the correct position. We're going to lerp by transition, which is our float that should be in between 0 and 1. And that's going to actually work. Okay. Now all we need to do is increment that transition value so we can actually have a different lerp every frame, and also end up finishing this animation so we can enter this if statement at one point. So what we're going to say is transition is plus equal to time.delta time times 1 divided by animation duration. Okay, so you just gotta tell yourself that after 1 second, time.delta time is equal to 1. So just say 1 seconds times 1 divided by, say, in this case, that's 2. So 1 divided by 2, 0.5. It is going to take 2 seconds in order for this to be equal to 1. Let's actually just have a look so you guys might understand a little bit more what I'm talking about. And this is what happens when I press on play. So the camera is up here. I don't know if you can tell. It's actually closer to the player. It starts here, so it's 5 meters closer than its original value. As you can tell, it's like over here. And then as the animation progresses, it's going to go in the back like this and also go down like this. Always compared to the player. Now, since I'm there, I might as well look at the player. So I'll just say transform dot look at, and I'm going to say look at dot position, and maybe add a dot vector up, so vector3 dot up. Now what this does, it is going to take the camera rotation, the orientation it currently has, so this thing is going to rotate it to actually look towards the point I gave him. In this case, I gave him the position of the player, so right there, plus 1 and up. So if we press play now, so we get an animation that goes from up there and that looks at the player. So we get this kind of shot, and then it progressively moves like this, and that's our start animation. Now if you want to see it more in detail, you can always increment the animation duration by say 4, like so. Then it's going to take 4 seconds for the animation to complete. Now it really depends on your liking, and I'm actually going to put it on 3 seconds. But just make sure you remember that value, because we're also going to be restricting the player from moving during that duration. So in this case, 3 seconds. Let me just play it once more. And here we go. So as you could tell, I also broke my camera, because on the last frame it's still looking at my player, and I don't want this to happen. So what we're gonna do now is actually restrict the player as well. Now take your animation duration like this, we're gonna copy it and head over to the player motor script. In there I will also put a animation duration. Now in order to stop our player from moving for 3 seconds, all we have to do is, since we know that everything happens in the update, all we really have to do is go up here, first line of update, and say if time.time, and that is pretty much just gonna return the amount of time in seconds that this scene has been running. So in this case, it's at the moment we press start, it's going to be on 0, and after 3 seconds, it is going to be on 3. So if time.time is smaller than animation duration, then if that's the case, let's make sure we actually do all our movement right here. So all we gotta say is controller.move, and when our player has no input, he's still going forward. So we gotta say vector3 dot forward times speed times time dot delta time. So that's what you used to do before that. So that's what we did on the first video. Don't forget your semicolon, and then after that, since we don't want the rest of this to be ran, all we gotta say is return. Now if we put a return in the middle of this if statement, then we're only going to run this, and then when it hits the return block, it's actually going to exit the update function. So this is not going to be ran. If we read this real quick, it pretty much says if the time right now is below 3 seconds, then we only do this, and if it's past 3 seconds, then we don't even run any of this and we just do our usual movement. Let's go ahead and try this out. I'm going to hit play, then left, right, nothing happens until the 3 second finishes. And that's going to be pretty much it for today, guys. Thanks a lot for watching. If you learned something or if you like this, please leave me a like, really appreciate it. And also, if you have any comment or question, please leave them in the comment section below, and I'll try to answer them as soon as possible. So guys, again, thanks for watching, and I'll be seeing you in the next episode.